Well, welcome back. This is Sonic 1992, and I want to welcome you to yesterday's Sonic 1992's Game Room and Museum. Today's topic, we're going to be discussing how the game room was built and how the display cases were built for the game room. It's going to be a handful of slides, and I'm going to try and give you a little description of what's going on as we go along the way. So I hope you enjoy this. Let's begin. Alright, the day finally arrived and the bulldozers in place. They started leveling the ground and getting ready for the foundation. Now the pad is ready, and then they place the beams. Now you can see that the foundation has already got it framed up and ready for concrete to be poured. And it's all set. All right, the day they poured the concrete. You're not going to believe this, but what should have only taken about an hour to pour took the entire day because it started drizzling early in the morning, and then it just kept raining, and then it would stop for a moment, and these guys would get their equipment out and re-smooth the concrete, and then it started pouring again, and then they had to pull the plastic and cover the foundation. It took them all day long to do this. It should have been really short, but these guys were troopers. They stayed the entire day. See all the water surrounding the work? Yes, so unbelievably, they started around 9 o'clock that morning and didn't finish until 11 p.m. that night. And then the next day, it was a perfect day. Go figure. But it got done, and it looks great. So now it's time to start putting up the walls and framing for the roof. There I am with a smile. I could not believe that this day finally came and I was going to have the game room. Framing continues, and then the walls start to go up. As you can see, it's very heavily insulated. There you go, the insulation, I made sure I got the thickest as possible so it wouldn't be too expensive on the electric bill to cool and heat this building. Roof starts going on, and it starts to look more like a room. While they were working on putting the roof on, we started doing the electrical work on the inside, placing the outlets and running the cable. That's me right there in the green jacket with the hat on. And boom, the roof is on, and it's already a room, and I'm already dreaming of what I'm going to put in here. We hung the ceiling fans, and we started putting up outlets. As you can see, the outlets, they're all individually switched, so I can turn on any game or whatever's plugged into it very easily. And that day's finished. I'm sitting there, all right, I'm so happy that the game room is here. And here's a few shots of the outside as it gets all finished up. Ah, the carpet. Let me tell you how the carpet happened. Well, what I was going to do in the beginning was place carpet from like Lowe's. It was just like blue in color, and it was going to just be like office pile carpet. And then I saw another person on the internet who was building their game room decided to use actual glowing carpet. So we went and seeked out a place in Houston that would do this kind of carpet, and we found out about Carpet Giant, and they actually provide this kind of carpet. So we actually went over there and got a decent price for it, and they came out to install it. It's so awesome. I'm so glad we went with this. This really made the room having this real arcade carpet. And then they started putting it down. This isn't like regular carpet. It actually has to be glued. And the carpet installers had to actually seam it up to where all those intricate little shapes and colors in the floor perfectly match. There's no mismatch anywhere in the room. Oh, the air conditioning. Well, this was the first air conditioner we got. The people who put it in said it would cool this room, and I told them it was 30 by 40 at the time. Would this unit do it? And they said it would, so I took their word for it. And they went ahead and installed it. And boom, the game room is finished on the outside. We started putting all the grass down. and it all looks nice. You can see from the recent construction that all the grass is starting to grow in. And let's go in. All right. The next thing was the very first display cases I got for the room. Now, I dreamed about these cases ever since I saw them back in the 90s at Kmart. Well, I could not believe it in 2002 that Kmart filed for bankruptcy and they were going out of business. So as soon as I heard about this, I zipped down to the store and put my name on the sheet for the store fixtures sale sheet. And I made sure I got my hands on all the display cases. As you can see, I'm standing there, right there with the cases, to make sure that they were mine. The day came, the store closed, they cleared out all the merchandise, and I was there to start taking them all apart. And this right here is me at a second location in Houston where I got their set of display cases. So I got 8 cases in total. After I purchased them, brought them home, and wrapped them up, this is where they sat for about 4 to 5 years. All right, as we were starting to build our house and the game room, I got to work on building the display cases, and luckily I had the help of my best friend out at work. His name is Delton Branch. He's the best man you'll ever meet. He's the friendliest guy you'll ever meet, and he's very good with woodworking. And when I say I asked him to help me, I basically helped him do the work. So we got the wood and plywood, and what we did was, the case is so big, it's basically 4 times 4 is 16. It's 16 feet on each side. So we built the case in sections so it'd be easier to transport back to the house. Luckily, we had a huge basement out at the job where we were able to do all the work in a climate-controlled condition. So after we built the decks, which are the walls and the backs are about 4 feet wide each, we painted them up and primered them first. That's my buddy Delton. We primered them, let it sit and dry. And then, of course, the cases, they were only deep enough to hold the small gondola shelves that were used in the store. So we added on this, like as you can see here, these pieces are the top of the case. So I added a 2x6 inch piece on the back to give it more depth to be able to add more to the case. And of course, painted it red to match. And then all the colors, as you can see here with these colors I chose, they're definitely Sonic the Hedgehog colors. Painted the back wall. These are all the back walls of the cases. And these are the side walls. As you can see, the colors just pop. And now they're all the pieces are ready for assembly. So they just sat there until the house and the game room were finished. All right, after we closed on the house and everything, it was time to start moving in and start putting everything together in the game room. And the first thing to do was put the cases together. As you can see, they went together perfectly in sections. And we centered it. First thing we did was make sure it was perfectly centered in the room, side to side, front to back. And we started to put it together. There's my buddy Delton. As you can see, I made sure the cases were big enough. We're both standing inside that case, just able to walk around easily. As you can see, it's starting to go together completely. And look at there, nice and square. And then we started on the flip side. And boom, both sides are done, nice and square, looks perfect. That was a long night. My wife Stacy took this picture for us and got that all done. And then we started slipping in the glass doors to see how they would look. Trimmed up the sides. And of course, as you can see, the tops of the cages were actually open cages, so they can breathe inside the store. But I didn't want there to be dust or anything trying to settle down inside all the collectibles and everything. So I figured out a way to cover the tops of the cases with these fluorescent lighting fixture diffusers. So I cut them to fit, placed them on the top, and glued them down. Now, before anybody says anything, yes, these are fluorescent light fixtures. This was 2006 2007, and LED fixtures were not available yet. But since I had the privilege of working in a museum, I knew where to order UV protective sleeves to go over the bulbs so it would block any UV coming out of these lamps. So I put the special protectors over each lamp, put the fixtures all up on the top, and wired it up. Okay, back to the air conditioning. This right here actually happened just 2 or 3 months after we moved in. This air conditioning unit was so troublesome that we had to call another company and get rid of it, because the company we bought it from, which I will not name, would not give us any help, and so we had to basically go to court and sue them because they would not let us return it. It broke down about 10 to 15 times. So we were able to get our money back and go to another company, and they actually gave us a proper unit. A 3-ton full-size AC with an outdoor unit and a full-size furnace and AC coils on the inside. As you can see, it has the proper ductwork, which I'm painting here now to actually make it match the room. And there you go. That's what a proper AC unit looks like. It's that right there is the furnace section. The coil section hasn't been brought in yet. And there's the outdoor unit. And there you go. That's what a proper AC unit looks like. After that was all done, we had perfect AC and heat inside the room. There we go. All right, the next step here was when we first moved in, we had it, this area was just open between the house and the garage. But a couple of years after we were in, there was a bunch of recent break-ins in the neighborhood. They basically broke into every shed going up and down the road in the neighborhood. And when we got home that night after seeing a movie, the next morning we walked outside and we saw a giant pair of bolt cutters leaning up against that propane tank. We couldn't understand what was going on, and then our neighbor told us that about 4 buildings were broken into, and that scared me really bad. So we decided we needed to get this area closed in and protected. So that's what we did. We had the area between the house and the game room built in and sealed off. So now you have to go through the garage to get into the game room. All right. Over the years, the game room was filling up very fast, and we said we need to figure out a way to add a little bit more room. So at the time, we did a little bit of home improvements, and the builder gave us a good deal on adding onto the game room, the existing game room building, and adding our utility building. So we went ahead and decided to expand. So again, the form was placed right here at the end of the building, and they started pouring the concrete. And slab was ready. Now the fun part was, how in the world I'm going to keep there from being a huge mess being made inside the game room while they're adding on to the game room, because they're going to have to cut holes here in the wall to go into the new section. So I pulled everything far back as I possibly could, removed the electrical wiring from the wall. There, now the slabs are all dried and ready. And then they start adding the beams for the walls and the ceiling. And by the way, while they were doing that, we had the air conditioning system uprated with a larger compressor so it could handle the additional load of this additional space. Again, very thick insulation. Walls go up, and there we are, they started to cut the new passage into the new building. I covered all the floors with as much old sheets as I could so it'd keep it nice and clean. One side is cut open, and as they were getting the doorways open, they already had the walls up and the roof sealed in. Boom, they'd done it fast. And that's how I decided to do this. I decided to make 2 5-foot passageways on either side of the center beam. That way it'll be an easy walk in and out to the new building. And there it is. After they got it all settled and closed in, I put the dehumidifier on that side to dry the building in very well. Next step was the carpet. The installers had to come in and put down a little bit of float to level the foundations between the existing building and the new building. And again, we went back to Carpet Giant in Houston and picked out some different blacklight reflective carpets so the new side will have its own appeal. And that's the carpet. It doesn't look that great right now, but wait till you see it under the new blacklight. The EC company also had to run a new duct and extend it into the new side. And while they were doing that, I went ahead and made a mount here for another ceiling fan. I had to tap off the existing fans and run it over to the new side. And boom, now we have ceiling fan in the new side. And then it was time to place the baseboards on the floor. As you can see, the carpet looks really good. And boom, there's the black light. It just screams with color. I love it. Isn't it crazy how much different it looks with the black lights on versus just the standard overheads? And then I came in and added plenty of outlets on the floor to plug in all the games or whatever needs to be plugged in on this side of the new building. And then so I decided to bring the games in and see how it all looks. And just this drove me crazy. We went to all this trouble to add all this new space and boom, it already feels like it's full. But I was still happy. I was just thrilled and on top of the world with it. That's me, of course, standing right there next to my custom-built Sonic the Hedgehog arcade game. And after everything was settled, this is what it looks like. All right. Let's move into the future. This is about 2018, around the time that Toys R Us went out of business. As soon as they announced their closing, I went straight over there and got my name on their fixtures purchase list. I wanted all of their display cases from there. All I wanted was just the fronts with the doors attached. Because if I could ever have a chance to build more display cases, I was thinking at the time that these would be absolutely perfect. So I asked my neighbor if he would help me go up there and carry them out of Toys R Us. This is the Toys R Us in Baytown. And I also went to another Toys R Us in Clear Lake and got theirs. So we carefully started dismantling them, took all the doors off first, and then brought a set of tools to figure out how to pull these things apart. And then this was the other good thing. I got all of the lighting fixtures, which were already LED and they perfectly lit the cases. I got all those out as well. We loaded them all up into the trailer, brought them home. First thing I did was spray them with the hose and scrub them clean. Clean the glass. And then they sat here for about 1.5 years until we figured out how to start building the new cases. So these cases right here, which saying goodbye, these cases worked for me since we moved in, but they take up a lot of space and didn't hold very much. So what I had in mind was with those Toys R Us display cases was to build a case all the way down the wall from one end to the other, and with the amount of cases I had, they would have equaled about 45 feet of display case. So we cleared out this entire side of the room, and then we taped it off with the tape measure and the blue painter's tape to see what it would look like. So we made the arrangements, went down to Home Depot and bought all the lumber. As you can see, that's a big stack of 4x8 3/4 inch plywood. Had to rent the truck to bring it home because I couldn't put it in mine, it was too much weight. So we got it all home, stacked it up in the garage, and I called my good buddy Delton, asked him if he could help me again with this project. And of course he said yes, thank goodness, because I would have been screwed without his help. So we brought all the plywood in and lined it up to see how it would look. And we got started. Of course, without his expertise, I would have been lost. So I'm telling you, this is the best guy in the world, my buddy Delton. So we got all the tools out, started measuring and cutting lumber. We got the walls attached and the bottom baseboard which will hold the bottom deck in place. Of course, if this was the first day, so I had to vacuum everything up. And then the next day he came over, we started building the deck. All lined out, nice and even. I want to make sure it could hold all the weight I'd want to put in it. That's why that's why we used the 3/4 inch plywood on the walls, the deck, and everything. As you can see, it goes together very good. This was the most important part. Had to find the center of the case and then center up the first door with the center so it would go out from there, from the left to the right, and look good. Got one in place, measured it, then 2, then 3, and so on. And boom, it already starts to look like a professional case. This was the hard part, making this turn to make the corner. The doors don't perfectly center up with this corner, but I don't mind because I want it to be as deep as possible. And you'll see why in a little bit because it worked out perfectly. And boom, we get all the trim on, we get the top facing board on, and get the roof on. And you can see how big it is. Time to tape it off and get it ready for primer. It took 10 gallons of primer on all this wood because it was raw plywood and it just soaked it up. So I had to paint it one night, go to the next day and paint it again, and then paint it again. Now, at the beginning when I showed you all the plywood on the floor, you saw those skinny strips. Those were leftovers from the initial cut, and I didn't know what I could do with those, but one thing I can do is I'm good with making use of every available scrap and or space. I decided to use those up onto the top, and I made a shelf up there to hold more collectibles. So all the primers going on. After that, it's time to start doing the yellow back walls on the top and on the inside. The color looks just perfect. Yellow is like one of the most perfect backgrounds for my kind of an application for displaying collectibles, especially Sonic. Ran the electrical and it tested perfectly. And now it's time to install the LED lighting. It was made for these cases. That's what made it so perfect. Started running it all. Thanks to my wife Stacy for helping take these pictures. And boom, gave it a test, lit them up, and look how perfect it looks. And of course, up on the top, since it's not going to be seen, I just did it in black. And now it's time for the trim. Red for the top and the bottom, and blue for the posts. Sonic blue. All right, I learned a valuable lesson for this. I did not decide to paint the floor of the cases. I decided to line it with carpet, because if you paint something and you put, like, let's say it's a Nintendo 64 box and it has all that glossy paint on it, it don't matter how long it's been dry. If you put it there, it'll make some kind of adhesion for some reason, and it will stick. So don't ever paint the bottom. Use carpet or any kind of other material, but don't use paint. So I got in there and started cutting the carpet. I'm having to use the clamp lights because when I started that work, I had to disconnect the electricity to get underneath the conduit I ran. And you see how big that is? Look at that vacuum cleaner just sitting in there. And on this end, I decided to make this the end for the first 4 figures, and I used wood shelves so they can hold their heavy, heavy weight. It's just my opinion, but try not to use glass shelves unless they're almost commercial grade, because that's a lot of weight to be placing on glass, especially stuff that's consumerly available. Use wood if at all means. Don't use glass unless it's commercial grade. And you can see how deep it is here. There you go. That shows you why I wanted those cases to be deep. I can do jumping jacks inside there. You see me standing next to Sonic and Tails? Yes, Sonic and Tails! Alright, the next step. I needed a lot of glass shelves to put in these cases. It's about 45 feet of cases, so I didn't know where to go. I looked at web pages that sold it new, and it was just so expensive. So I decided to hit Facebook Marketplace. This guy had tons of glass for really cheap. He basically closed a cell phone shop and didn't need it anymore, so I got a bargain. Everything you see here, I bought all of his glass. The next step was the hardware to hold the glass and the shelf brackets. Of course, I painted it yellow to match. This is the best glass cleaner you could ever use. We decided to go into town to pick up some hardware for the pegboards and I needed a lot more brackets, so we had to go back again. Painted it all yellow, and as you can see here, I started lining up the glass along all the fronts of the cases, and the blue pieces of tape are my center points to make sure that the glass is centered in between each piece of blue tape so it'll be even with the door openings. And you can see the brackets go up, they're practically invisible. And now it's time to place the glass and start placing the goodies. All right, this right here is a sneak peek. Guess what that means? In our next episode, I'm going to be telling you all about how I named the game room and how I got a hold of my childhood game room signs. I really hope you enjoyed this story, and I appreciate you tuning into my channel. If you enjoyed what you saw, please like, follow, and share. And I look forward to sharing more stories with you next time. Until then, this is Sonic 1992. Thank you so much for watching. One last sneak peek.